Hey everybody, happy Saturday evening live tutorial stream. Hope everyone is doing well wherever you are out there on the internet today. We had a very busy day here at Beading Dreams, which was great because the rest of this week has been the polar opposite of busy in terms of being absolutely slow as molasses in January or July, as the case may be. So we were very happy to get a busy day here at the Beading Dreams, and now we are so happy to be with you this evening on stream to teach this project. This is our no solder silver ring, okay? And now, or sterling ring or whatever. The point is, I was really just playing with alliteration there. It doesn't have to be silver. It can be copper, brass, bronze, any kind of malleable metal that you have, because the whole thing about this is it relies on the fact that you can smash the metal into shape. So it's not going to work well with something that's really hard. So, I would stay with anything like stainless steel, but copper, sterling, silver, brass, and bronze should all work just fine. So this is actually the ring itself. And so it's kind of an organic ring, and it does have a little bitty stone set in it right there. See, there's a little stone. So we are going to do a little flush setting on the stone, and I'm going to zoom in a bit when it comes time to do that part of it. So let's talk about tools and supplies for this evening's tutorial. You are going to need some sheet metal. Like I said, silver, brass, bronze, copper. You're gonna need a thick gauge, okay? So I'm using 16 gauge sheet metal. Now, that is not the cheapest in sterling silver. You really don't need that much though. You basically just need, basically sorry, that was a lot of basics's, but you pretty much just need like a 1-inch square section of your 16 gauge metal. So, typically when you're buying sheet metal, they do oftentimes say that one dimension has to be 3 inches, so you're going to wind up buying 1x3, but you can get 3 rings typically out of a 1x3 section of sheet metal. So I've got 16 gauge sterling sheet metal, and then if you are going to set a stone in it, you are going to need some tiny stones. So I've got some little bitty 1.5 millimeter CZs. And we're going to need one of them, but it's always a good idea to have more than one. Hi, Sophia, when you're dealing with things that are that tiny. And as far as supplies go, literally that's it. You need your sheet metal, your CZs, you're all set. As far as tools go, you're going to need a bench pin. Bench pin is what we use as our base for sawing. You are going to need a jeweler's saw with a 2/0 blade in it. You're going to need a Dremel or a flex shaft. You're going to need 3 different drill bits. You are going to need, this one is, I believe, a number 56 drill bit. This one, that's stuck in there. This little one here, this is a number 69 drill bit. And then this is a 1 millimeter setting burr. So if I can, I don't know if I can zoom in anymore. But let's see if I can. Come on. Alright, so let's see how big can I make this? Oh, pretty big. Okay, awesome. So see, it's a setting burr. So there's a little bit on the end of the burr that's literally shaped like a cut gemstone. So it's flat on the sides and it's pointy on the bottom, and that's what we're going to use to burr out our setting to set our stone. So you're going to need those 3 drill bits plus your Dremel or your flex shaft. I'm going to put those in here so I don't lose them. You're going to need a ring mandrel, steel ring mandrel. Has to be steel for this because you're going to have to hammer on it. So just your regular standard steel ring mandrel. I'm doing a flush setting, Sophia, which is a little bit different than a bead setting. Ring mandrel, you're going to need a chasing hammer. Oof. So chasing hammer. If you don't have a chasing hammer, your household hammer will be just fine. You are also going to need a circle template. This is just your regular circle template like you would get at the art supply store. Mine is, of course, so used that pretty much all the writing is worn off of it, but that's okay. You're also going to need a burnisher, and this is a small burnisher. It's a small pointy burnisher. This is what you're going to use to actually set your stone. And you may want some steel wool just in case you get a couple of nicks or rough edges when you're hammering. And if you want, you can use a sunshine cloth to buff everything nice and shiny when we're done. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to find on my circle template the circle that is approximately 3 sizes smaller than the ring I'm trying to make. So I'm going for an 8. So I want to find on my ring mandrel what goes around to about a 5. Okay, so that one's way too big. That one goes all the way down to an 8. Alright, that one's just a little more than a 5. So I think that's probably gonna be my circle, because the next one I think is gonna be too small. So I'm gonna take that circle, I'm gonna take my 16 gauge wire, or not wire, 16 gauge sheet metal, and I'm gonna grab something that I can use to mark on metal. Which you would think that I would have plenty of those things. Haha.
You have one that attaches to your seat.
I know, but my shirt has no pockets.
Well, that's a failure of design.
Alright, so I'm going to take my circle that I determined is the right size. Now, I don't want to butt it right up against the edge because I'm going to be drawing another circle around it. So I want to make sure that I have a solid, 1.5 millimeters or so on either side. And I'm going to go ahead and scribe that. Then I'm going to find the circle that goes around it, that goes pretty much right to the edge of, there you go, right to the edge of my metal. And I'm going to scribe that. Okay, so I've got 2 circles scribed in my metal. This one is about 3 sizes smaller than the ring size that I am trying to make. And now I'm going to go ahead and use my jeweler's saw to cut this ring, this washer essentially, out of my metal. I'm going to start with the middle circle, and then I'm going to do the outside circle because it's a lot easier to do this middle circle when you got all this metal too. Hi, Barrett Fawcett. Welcome, welcome. How's everything where you are? Nice to see you. And we had an in-person visitation today by Vanishing Pearl. It was so exciting. It's always exciting to meet the people from the internet. And she was delightful, not surprisingly. So, in order for me to cut out this center circle, I need to first drill a hole. So I've already loaded my number 56 drill bit, which is the biggest drill bit I'm using tonight, into my, thank you, I am super happy with the hair. It's definitely not going back to blonde anytime soon, maybe ever. Okay, so I'm going to take this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole within this center section. So when you're drilling a hole that's going to be an ingress for your saw blade, you want to make sure that you don't drill in the part you're keeping, you drill in the part that's going to be waste. So I'm just going to take that, and I'm just going to pop a hole. Well, okay, that is not ideal, but it worked. That is what happens when you don't tighten down your Dremel enough.
I don't know anything about that. That wasn't a clearing my throat for me.
But I did actually manage to make a hole, so that's the most important thing here.
That is.
So now I'm going to take my saw blade, and this is a 2/0 saw blade, and I'm going to thread that up through. Though she's not currently in Canada. She said she was in from Wichita Falls.
Yeah.
which is not Canada.
No, it is not.
So I thread my blade up through that hole, and then I'm going to go ahead and load my saw. And when I'm loading my saw, I'm just going to press it against my table so that I get some tension on the blade, tighten that up, and hopefully I have a nice tight fit. Now I'm going to put this on my bench pin, and I'm going to saw out this center section. Okay, so I'm sawing around my smaller circle. So when you're sawing, it's important to support from both sides on your bench pin, and it's important to keep your saw frame straight up. Don't let it tilt forward like this, because you're going to break a lot more blades that way. And don't think about shoving forward with your saw. Just keep it going up and down, and it'll take care of moving itself through the metal for you. So I'm just going to saw to my scribe line, and I'm going to start going around. So when you come to the turn, what you got to do to make that happen is you got to kind of tread your saw up and down while you are turning your metal. And then you can start going around. So notice when I'm doing this that I'm sitting directly in front of my bench pin, which you can't see in this frame, but it's right here, straight down. I'm cheated a little bit towards my dominant side, my right side, so not square in front of my bench pin. I'm a little bit where my dominant side is a little bit more in front of the bench pin than the center of my body. But what tends to happen with people, especially people who aren't really comfortable with sawing, is they'll tend to kind of like curl in and like cuddle their bench pin, and then all of a sudden you're like sawing sideways, and it's very, very awkward. So think about when you're sawing about always going forward. Forward is the ideal direction here, not sideways nor backwards nor any other, variation thereof.
No cuddling Julie.
Yeah. And those of you who are used to, who have sawn before, may have noticed that I did not lubricate my saw blade before I started sawing. I don't usually use lubricant on my saw blades, and it works just fine for me. That's so very much not true for everybody. So if you're having difficulty with your sawing, you can put a little bit of beeswax or 3-in-1 oil, Burl Life. There's a number of things that you could, even olive oil, just to kind of help your blade move through your metal. I'm happy to make one for you, Ferret Faucet. What size are you? I can have Heather whisper you with a quote. But you do get to bash on some metal during this, so it can be a very cathartic project. Okay, so when you're sawing and you are 7, okay, so this one's going to be a little too big for you, but I can, I've got enough on the 16 gauge to make another one, so I can have Heather whisper you with a quote of how much it would cost, and I will happily make you one and send it to you. Okay, so when you're sawing, usually you're pretty safe having one of your fingers in front of the blade, as long as it's not literally resting on the blade. The only time that becomes a bad choice is when you're getting to the end of your cut, because when you get to the end of your cut, your saw blade is going to jump forward, and if you jump forward and you're on a downstroke, you're going to give yourself a nice little slice. So since I'm coming to the end of my cut, I'm just going to move my fingers out of the path of the saw blade, and then I'm going to finish that cut. And there we go. Alright, so this little piece of silver I can hang on to, and I can use that for something else. Now I'm going to unstring my saw blade, reload it into my saw with tension again. That's the sound you want to hear when you Ding your saw blade. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to cut out the outside circle. And again, make sure that you're supported on both sides. So at this point, some of you who hate sawing are probably like, you know what? I'd rather solder this. That's totally valid. But it's interesting to see how you actually can create a ring with no soldering at all. Also, some benefits of using the no solder technique is you don't have to worry about pickling or, you know, an excessive amount of polishing, which is nice. Especially if you don't have pickling chemicals available, if you don't have polishing wheels available, you know, it's nice to just kind of circumvent all that stuff. And also, if you're traveling and you're not able to travel with your torch, this is a fun project for a situation like that as well. So I'm just continuing to go around.
Because what crafter doesn't travel with crafting?
Right? Most of us travel with excess crafting, because what if we were to finish the 17 projects that we had packed and we didn't have an 18? That would just be a tragedy.
It would be a tragedy. I learned this lesson as a child. Also with books. I ran out of the 20 books that I'd taken. So that's what e-readers are wonderful for.
It's true.
Because I can carry 25 books. Or 100.
Or 125 books.
Yep.
And I broke a saw blade. This happens. See, there's no middle, no more to that saw blade. This happens a lot when you're sawing, especially as your saw blades, you know, get more used. They're going to be more likely to break. Unfortunately, I don't have any more over here, so I will be right back.
No.
As soon as I sat down and realized that I didn't have any saw blades over here, I knew I was going to break one. Because that's just the way that it
Pretty
works.
much guaranteed, yeah.
Yep. So for anybody who's interested how you buy saw blades, so you can buy them either by the dozen or by the gross typically. So this is a dozen saw blades. And if you don't do a lot of sawing, this will last you for a decent amount of time. If you're me, you buy them by the gross, which is a dozen. And that will last me a fairly decent amount of time because I don't do a ton of sawing. I really like sawing. I'm weird like that, but I don't do a massive amount of it. So a gross of saw blades will usually last me about 6 months. And you know, I am the queen of generic products, bargain products, like, you know, if the generic is as good as the name brand, but it's cheaper, buy the generic. Saw blades are one of the few things that I will not compromise on. I buy the Rio Grande Laser Gold saw blades, and I really do think that they are superior to the cheapy saw blades out there. You know, and you're looking at a significant difference in cost. You know, your bargain saw blades are going to cost you something like $1 or $2 a dozen, and your laser golds are going to cost you more like $7 or $8 a dozen. But personally, I find that I break way less of the laser golds, so I go through, they last me longer than the cheapy ones. Okay, so now here comes the fun part, is how do I get back to where I was? Because trying to get up through this saw cut is really a pain. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to saw to this line, and then I'm going to turn and I'm going to keep going. Getting started is always the hardest. The best way to get started is to just lightly drag your saw blade along the edge of your metal, and by lightly I mean really with like practically no pressure at all. So I'm going to go here and I am going to be making a complete hairpin turn here. So just up and down with the saw blade and turn your metal, and yes, it's awkward. Once you get back to the point where forward is again on your line, then you can continue. I'm just going to go all the way around till I meet my beginning. Once again, once you're getting there, get your fingers out of the way. There we go. So did you see that was the jump that I was talking about? That's why you don't want your fingers in front of the blade. Okay, so there is my washer that I cut out of silver. Now, at this point, it's really not important that you do any finishing on the edges because we are about to pound the bejesus out of this. So,
oh dear, I better leave. Well, not leave, but you know.
All right, so I'm going to put this onto my mandrel. No, the hammered effect is actually mandatory and inescapable. But so this is all the way hammered with the flat side of the chasing hammer, but I can also hammer with the round side to do more of a traditional hammered effect. So I can show you what that looks like at the end of the process. So what I'm going to do now is I'm literally going to take this and I'm going to start hammering it. And ideally what I want to have happen, which may or may not work for me tonight. Let me see if I can get it started over here. There we go. So what I'm doing, now that I've got it started, is I'm trying to take this and I'm turning it downward so that I'm essentially going to flip it to where this part right here is flush against my ring mandrel. And that can be a little bit of a pain, but if you get the right angle, you can just kind of tap it with your hammer in that downward direction and it'll start doing that downward flare that we're looking for. Alright, and notice how it's already getting bigger. It's already gone up almost a size. And then once you've got that flare, then you can start hammering it flat to flatten it down. So it's almost like if you're doing an anti-clastic ring, where you just have to get it started going the right direction, and then you can go from there. But you really have to get it started going the right direction first. Okay, so see how that's flipping downward, and it's a little bit fluttered at the moment, which is fine. Okay, so now I've got my ring that's essentially kind of a flange that's flared down. It's now gone up 2 sizes. It's now a size 6. Now I'm going to go ahead and hammer this whole thing flat against my ring mandrel with my chasing hammer. Sorry, my bench pin is just not stable enough. So let's go ahead and get rid of, ow! Pinched myself. Just go ahead and get rid of that and put this here. Let me go ahead and see if I can get the zoomy zoom going a bit. Let's zoom on in a little bit more on that. Okay. And can we focus? Okay, that's probably as good. Do we want it lighter? Ooh, that's too bright. Ooh, we're gonna stay with that. Okay, so now I'm gonna continue hammering this. I've got it braced against the table now. And now it's gonna make my camera shake, but I'm gonna hammer this flat all the way around my mandrel. Alright, so there we are. So I overshot a little bit. I'm actually at an 8.5. But there we go. So that is now my ring. Now, you will notice that my ring mandrel is a cone, and now my ring is a cone, which is not what we want. So I'm just going to go ahead and flip it over, put it back on my mandrel, and hammer it again. And if we wanted to do a peened finish on it with the round side of the hammer, then we just go around one more time, texturing it with the round side of the hammer. Which even makes it a little bit bigger. So this literally, it started at a 4 and now it is a 9.5. So that means it actually went up 5.5 sizes. So if I were doing a 7, I would want to go 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, I would want to start at like a 1.5. So what I said at the beginning of the tutorial about going 3 sizes smaller was actually not completely accurate. You need to go more than that. You need to go 5 sizes smaller. Now that also depends on how much you hammer it, because the more you hammer it, the bigger it's going to get. But yeah, so not 3 sizes, definitely more than that. Now, because of all the hammering, it is a little bit rough, rough around the edges here. So I'm just going to grab myself a little bit of steel wool. And I'm just going to steel wool around the edges, and I'm going to see if that takes that down enough that I feel like it's going to be comfortable to wear. If it doesn't, I'll bust out the sandpaper. Like, there's a little nick right there. That's pretty sharp. That I don't think the steel wool is going to take care of, so we're just going to take some sandpaper to that. If it's really bad, you can take a file to it, but in this case, I think that the sandpaper is going to be just fine. I'm just going to go ahead and steel wool the whole thing just to kind of bring the edges down to a more comfortable place, and then we're going to set this down. Yeah, that's much better. Because don't forget, it's a ring. It's going to be worn on a finger, so you don't want to lacerate somebody's finger when they're wearing it. That's not polite for jewelry to cut the person who's wearing it.
Because we aren't Megan Fox and Machine Gun Kelly.
Exactly. Okay, so now I'm going to grab another tool that I did not say at the beginning of class, but I'm going to grab myself a ring clamp. And a ring clamp is just a tool for holding a ring. So I'm going to put my ring in my ring clamp. Now, you could actually, like, depending on how ambitious you were, you could actually use this flesh setting method, and you could set multiple stones around this ring. I mean, you can make a little eternity band, you know, and do 4 stones or 6 stones or 8 stones. We're going to go ahead and just do 1 today because, you know, time and all, but there's no reason you couldn't use this technique to set multiple stones around your ring. Okay, so I've got my excuse me. I've got my ring in my ring clamp. I'm going to take the wedge and I'm just going to stick it in the back of my ring clamp and make sure it's in there good and tight. So now my ring clamp is holding my ring so that I don't have to. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to that number 69 drill bit, which is significantly smaller than the one I was using a minute ago, which means I need to find the smallest one of these that I have, which is none of you. Oh, that's no bueno. I can't find the tiny collet for my, or for your, technically, for your Dremel.
For our Dremel.
Okay, well, boo.
How can I help?
Oh, I'm just gonna go drill it over there.
Okay.
At some point, though, I need to order another one. Okay, so I have lost, apparently, there is a collet, which is the part that holds the drill bit, that is 1 size smaller than this, and I have misplaced it. So I'm going to go
sure
ahead.
We'll find it.
Oh, I'm sure we'll find it immediately after the stream. But I'm just going to go do my first drilling over there with the flex shaft. Meanwhile, I can go ahead and at least set my burr up so that when I come back, it's ready to go. So this is the one thing that really, I feel like flex shafts are far superior to Dremels, because you have to do all of this horsing around with the different sizes of collets to hold your different drill bits and things, whereas a flex shaft is just an infinite chuck, so it'll hold anything. Okay, so this is my 1mm setting burr.
Did you say horsing around?
I did.
Okay, just double check.
Okay, so that's my setting burr, so that's going to be ready for when I go back. So I'm going to go grab my 69 drill bit, and I'm going to just put one hole right there. So I will be right back. Okay, so your hole in this instance needs to be smaller than your stone. Since my stone is very, very small, I have a very, very small hole. Now I'm going to take my setting burr, and I'm going to take my setting burr and I'm going to put it into that hole that I drilled, and I'm going to press down with my burr. So if I were my mouse, I would be here. I did drill the hole all the way through the ring, Lori. So it goes all the way through the ring. It's also a starter for the burr. but it also lets light get into the back of the stone. So now I'm going to take my burr and I'm going to put it into the hole that I drilled, and I'm going to sink it down about 3/4 of the way down the head of my burr. So, just going to go into that hole, press down, make sure I got it. Good. Okay, so I've got that bird. Come here. There. Alright, so I've got that sunk in there. When I press down, it's about 1/2 to 3/4 of the way in, and that is what I want. I'm just going to double check that real quick. Okay, yeah, that looks pretty good. So what I should have now is this. I don't know why it's so hard for me to position this, but there we go. Okay, so what I should have now is this. So I've got this hole that's burred out, and that's where I'm going to put my stone. So now I'm going to grab my stone. And I feel like you know what would be really awesome is if autofocus worked.
I can't help with that.
No, I apparently can't either.
Rude.
Yeah, I'm not talented enough to make autofocus work. There, okay, but now you can see that much better. So I've burred out my setting, so the burr doesn't go all the way through the ring, but the original hole does. So now I'm going to grab one of my little CZs, and they're so small they like stick to the sides of the thing with static electricity. And I'm going to grab one. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to grab one and I'm going to set it in the hole, like so, and then what you want to do is you want to have to push it into the hole. So I'm going to use my prong pusher, and I'm just going to press down on that until it snaps into the hole. And when you're doing this, if your hole's too big, you are utterly screwed. Your stone's never going to set. So you really have to be good at that tight math of knowing how big or not big to make the hole. Well, hi Scott, how's it going? How's everything up there? Hey, I heard somebody in Illinois won the big giant lottery. Was it you? I mean, have to ask. Okay, I'm looking for some sort of magnification device. Haha! Found one. I literally cannot see if that's in the hole or not because it's so tiny. So this is where loops. Oh, sorry. This is where loops are helpful. And the answer is not quite. And so now you know why jewelers wear those giant visors on their heads. Because when you're dealing with something that's so frickin' tiny bitty, it's literally the only way you can see. A little bit more. Now since this is a CZ, I can press on it pretty hard. I don't have to worry about hurting it any. This is not a method of setting that you want to use with anything that's particularly delicate. Okay, so no opals, no apatites, nothing that is potentially breakable. Okay, so that is now in there. I don't think I can get the camera to show through the loop. I am, however, going to move back over the light background. Okay, so now I have my stone in there. It's pressed down as far as I can get it. So now I'm just going to take my burnisher and we're going to do two things. I'm going to run round the stone at about a 30-degree angle, and then I'm going to go vertical and I'm going to run round the stone again. And ideally what that's going to do is it's going to push that metal around my stone enough to hold it in place. Okay, so let's keep that on the camera. And I can go around it a couple times at that 30-degree angle. What I'm trying to do is I'm literally trying to smoosh the metal over the stone. And then I'm going to go around again at a 90-degree angle. Alright, I think that's it. Sure. And okay, so ooh, yay costuming party. All right, so it's in there. Best way to try it is to just turn it upside down and tap it. Make sure that it's not going to come out, which it did not, which is good. And then you'll see that I did scratch this up a lot with the burnisher. I am not super fabulous at flesh setting. I'm getting much better at it, but you know, a proper jeweler would not have made all those scratches. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to steel wool them away. Pretend like it never happened. And then the last thing that I can do, if I so choose, okay, so see, maybe much better. I can actually pull it out of the ring clamp now. So not perfect, but much less scratched now. And then if I want, I can grab a polishing pad and just take a round and give it a good shine, and that'll give it a lot of nice bling to it.
No time.
That's good. Can't die until after the next stream.
Okay. No fun.
Yeah, but you knew that already. Alright. So, there we go. That's it. So that's our little cubic zirconia that's set in there. Yes, you could do that with a diamond or any other sturdy stone, so citrine and amethyst, a quartz. But again, you want to stay away from your fragile stones. No opals, no apatite, no tanzanite with this particular method of setting. And if you wanted to, you could, like I said, you could make that a series and go all the way around the ring with your flesh set stones. But for now, this is our no solder silver ring. All right, that was made with no soldering of any kind. It was completely cold and lots of fun. Once again, banging on things is fun. So that's it. That's the magical trick behind the no solder silver ring. Ta-da! And once again, you don't have to do this in silver. You could do it in brass, bronze, copper, whatever kind of easily malleable sheet metal you have is going to work well for this project. So thanks so much for hanging out with us on the Beading Dreams stream for our no solder silver ring. We will be back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, in just about half an hour with a live merchandise sale. I've got new glass beads for you. There's some really, really cool ones. Even if you're not a huge glass person, I promise there's going to be something you're going to like in these because they are really cool. If you're not going to make it for the sale, thanks so much for hanging out for the tutorial. And don't forget, you can find us on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream. That's a good question, Lori, that I don't know the answer to, but I will measure it and I'll post it in Discord because I don't have a caliper back here by me. It was nice seeing you too, Ferret Faucet. Thank you so much for dropping by. Yeah, so don't forget, you can find me on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, 5 times a week with complimentary tutorials. We stream Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights at 6 p.m. Central Time, plus a bonus tutorial Thursdays at noon, and live merchandise sales every Wednesday and every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. That means that I'll be back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, again in about 30 minutes with a live merchandise sale featuring new glass beads and maybe some other cool stuff I haven't decided. I feel like I'm probably going to get stuck in glass bead land, but there's going to be fun stuff. So thanks everyone so much for joining us, and I will see you all back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream in 30. Bye!